Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this album by Oasis. It is Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. Now this review was requested by a user, Ewan Ellis, so thank you very much for requesting this review. I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my final copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So yeah, this was the fourth Oasis album, and it will, like in a couple of days' time, be celebrating its 20th anniversary, like as it was released on the 28th of February in the year 2000. And kind of like the album very much sort of like represented a sort of new chapter like for the band. They'd lost like two band members, Bonehead and Grigsy, as well as like their producer Owen Morris. Like they decided like not to work with him like again. So like consequently, like only three musicians appear like on this album: Liam, Noel, and Alan White. Additionally, Creation Records had also closed down, like so like the band actually set up like their own label called Big Brother Records, like who like would like release like all future Oasis albums. I kind of personally felt like the band as well, like it sort of like represented like a new beginning. Like the kind of like the late 90s like was a time like of like a lot of like excess, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, and like, especially like for Noel, like he like recalled that like his house had effectively turned into like a nightclub, like with all these strangers like coming and going, and that like by this point like he was like coming into like his 40s almost, and like he'd had completely like enough of that. So wanted like kind of like a new beginning. And stylistically, the album represented like a change as well, like moving towards like a more like psychedelic sound and like utilizing samplers, loops, and synthesizers. And furthermore, like Noel like was allowed the time to sort of like experiment like with like different equipment and like different like sort of sounds. Like as like there was like no deadline like for making this album because they were no longer signed like to like a like record label. Like they could basically take like as long as they wanted like making this album, like which is precisely like what they did. Now the title "Standing on the Shoulder of Giants" like comes from a quote like which like Noel seen, I believe, like inscribed like into like a £2 coin, like whether like that quote actually said like standing on the shoulders of giants, like whether like Noel like sort of like copied it down wrong, like so like the incorrect version like became like the album title. And yeah, like when like it was released, like there was a lot of hype, a lot of expectation. Like it had been about 3 years like since Oasis had put out like any new music, so definitely like there was like a lot of like expectations for this album. And while it was commercially successful, it was a #1 hit like in the UK. I think it's still the 16th fastest selling album like of all time here. Like it is though Oasis's worst selling album. And like it did get mostly a mixed to poor critical reception, like with like Q Magazine like later putting it like at number 46 on a 50 worst albums of all time list. So yeah, like it's not got the best like reputation, this album, but I think people are sort of too quick like to compare it to like their glory days like of like the 90s. Okay, so I'll now just show you my final copy of it here. This is just a like basic reissue of it. Originals of this go for quite a bit of money now, but to be honest, I don't think there is much difference between them. And like yeah, like the album cover itself, I'm not the biggest fan of it, although it is like visually striking. Like it's probably about as far away like as it's possibly to get, like from like Definitely Maybe, like kind of like with like sort of like the Manhattan skyline. It's sort of like they were kind of like they really hit like the big time like by this point. They were like probably like the biggest band like in the world. So really like really kind of like this sort of cover like kind of shows as like all like the excess like kind of like what had like sort of like gone on like really. But it does have a quite a nice gatefold to it though, and a insert which looks like that. So you just get the lyrics and the kind of track listed in credits, and then it is on a sort of nice custom label which I do quite like. So yeah, that is the vinyl record looked at. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album songs in detail. So there's 10 tracks on here, so I'll score each track out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Kick off the album with the instrumental Fucking in the Bushes, which is an instrumental opener which they used I think to start all their concerts with, like from this point onwards. I mean, it's a decent riff like on it, like quite like a heavy like kind of like heavy guitar riff, like a kind of like sort of like interesting like drum rhythm on it as well, but it's not really like anything like more than that. Again, it's got all these sort of like psychedelic like samples on it and stuff, and it for me it does kind of continue the rather overblown nature like of the previous album Be Here Now. It's kind of like, have they learned anything from that? from that album, that kind of thing, like opening with something like as sort of like big, like and like as bombastic, like as this, like without having any like real substance. But it is fairly enjoyable. Like it's not a bad track, and like yeah, I would give it a 7 out of 10. But then the first proper song on the album is Go Let It Out, which this one again, it begins with a more sort of like subtle kind of drum pattern like on it, like a bit more like it's not just like sort of like the kind of like typical like sort of like thrashing out like on like the drums like which like, they've been known for. It's got a bit more like kind of thought like put into like the rhythm like of this one here, and again it's a kind of sort of like low key sort of psychedelic mood like to it, a lot of like Beatlesque like tape loops going on, and like a very McCartney-esque like bass line on it as well. This was the lead single from the album, and it reached number 1 in the UK. And yeah, it is a really good song. I think I would give it a 9 out of 10. I would say that the B-sides to it, which is a song called Let's All Make Believe, is for me even better, and I think would have been an absolute standout track like on the album. Like, that's an opinion which I think like most Oasis fans like agree on. Like that is a real hidden gem there. Next up is called Who Feels Love, which sort of continues the kind of psychedelic vibe like off the last track. This one is a lot more kind of like Indian like influence though, like with a kind of like droney feeling to it. It's possibly the most Beatle-y like they ever got, like in terms of kind of like it's sort of similar to say like all like George Harrison's like stuff like from like the later Beatles catalogue. And like yeah, like again, it was a successful single for them, reached number 4 on the UK charts. Just for me, it's never been a huge favourite of mine. I think it goes on a little bit too long again, but it's not a bad song, so I will give it a 7 out of 10. Next up is called Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, which is a kind of bit of album filler now. It's a rocking song, this one here. Again, Liam really belts out the vocal like on this one here, but the lyrics on it are just not interesting, they're just not engaging. And like the song itself musically is kind of very similar to sort of like a lot of the stuff like on Be Here Now, so it doesn't really show like a lot of like musical development like this song. So yeah, I would give it a 6 out of 10. It's not bad. It's quite good. It's quite good like when it's on, you just sort of like rock along to it. But there's not really much substance to it. It's not a song which I would ever go to in isolation off the album. So yeah, that one would get a 6 out of 10 from me. I'm singing this song for you and your mom. Next up, which closest side one, is called Little James, and this one I would give a 4 out of 10 to. I do think this is a pretty bad song, I have to say. It's widely considered to be probably one of the worst songs like in the Oasis catalogue. Now it is notable because it was Liam's first stab like at songwriting. However, it is pretty rubbish, I'm gonna say. Throwaway lyrics on it. He sort of sings like on the chorus, "I'm singing this song for you and your mum," and that's all. It was written like about like a stepson, like I think, and it is kind of yeah, like it is just a bit rubbish, like really this one here. Like it gets a bit excessive towards the end, like with a lot of like it's kind of got these Hey Jude style like backing vocals on it, just a bit like overproduced, I think, like for what is a very kind of like simplistic sort of like nursery rhyme like style song. They kind of like sort of like overblow it like a little bit too much. So yeah, this one would get a 4 out of 10. Not a song which I'm a massive fan of, unfortunately. Next up is a sort of like fan favourite like on the album, like if like there is like such a thing like on here. It's a Gas Panic, and yeah, this is a kind of slower, more sort of proggy number, this one here, and it's got slightly darker tone to it than like probably anything like in like their like catalogue. More kind of gloomy lyrics, like he sort of like the chorus goes like, "You better get on your knees and pray, panic is on the way," which I know, like I said, that this song like is about like the panic attacks, like what like he suffered like from like after kind of like moving like away like from the city, like kind of isolating himself like in the countryside and like coming like off like a cocaine addiction. So it does have this sort of like this very sort of heavy kind of feeling to it, and I must say it is a bit dragged out like towards the end. It's not a song I really have to be like in the mood like to like really get this song like to like really like enjoy like this one, but it is one of the stronger tracks on the album, like without a doubt. And yeah, I would give it a 8 out of 10. Next up up is called Where Did It All Go Wrong? And this is another pretty strong song, I feel. It's a Noel Gallagher lead vocal, this one. And lyrically, he said it's quite an autobiographical track about a time like in his life like that he regrets. I think kind of like like the excess like of like the Be Here Now period. Like he sings like, do you keep the receipts for the friends that you buy, and like yeah, like it's a it's a good song, kind of like soaring like anthem, like which I think stands out like on the album. But like again, compared to like all the other brilliant songs like which like Noel has written like throughout the years, like sort of like that, so like from like not only like the 90s but more recently like as well, this one kind of like doesn't stand out as much. But on this particular album, I think it works like quite well, and like does like come across as one of the stronger tracks. So yeah, I will give it an 8 out of 10 overall. And then the next track up is called Sunday Morning Call, which is a song which Noel apparently really hates. Like he regrets like this one, he's called it terrible. And yes, while it isn't one of their finest singles, I don't think it's all that bad of a song. I mean, like it's got a pretty good melody like on it, like I would say. It's a bit dreary though, like kind of thing, and it does go on a little bit too long, I have to say. But again, it was a successful single for them, reached number 4 on the UK charts. And yeah, it's not a bad song, this one. Like, and like again, you have to be kind of like in the mood like to hear this one. Like if this one say came up like on shuffle or something, I might like be tempted like to give it a skip. Like, but like on the album, like it fits in like well enough. So yeah, we'll get a 7 out of 10 for Sunday Morning Call. Next up is called I Can Smell a Liar, which is again another fillery one on the album. It's a kind of upbeat, sort of like punky, like rock number. It's just not very memorable, like sort of like it's quite like unnoteworthy lyrically, and like very sort of generic like rock arrangement on it. It's very much Oasis by numbers, like this one here, like sort of like very kind of like Be Here Now era kind of like sound to it. And like yeah, like it's nothing much. I would give it a 5 out of 10. Like it's not unlistenable, it's not bad, it's just not very good. But then thankfully we end the album on a real high with probably my favourite on the album, Roll It Over, which I was debating whether to give this one a 9 like or a 10 out of 10, but I thought I would be kind and give it a full 10 out of 10. Definitely my favourite on the album. It's a really sort of like anthemic sort of song which I think builds up like very well. Starts off like kind of like just very quiet, like acoustic guitar, like, but like by the end we've got choirs, we've got like the whole like kitchen sink like on it, but it builds up like very naturally, like I feel. And like lyrically, like again it's a bit more interesting than a lot of this album, like about, so like I think like the consequences like of fame, like and sort of like being like sort of like associated like with people like you don't like really want to be, like he sort of sings like, look at all the plastic people who live without a care, they try to sit around my table but never bring a chair. And yeah, I just think it concludes the album really well, like a big guitar solo, like big choir like comes on. Yes, it is a bit overblown, yes it is a bit pompous, but it is good though. So, and it is good, and it is a song which I can like really like get behind. So yeah, Roll It Over for me would get a 10 out of 10, a really underrated Oasis song there. So yeah, overall this album would score 71%. So yeah, it's not a bad record this, like overall. And then yes, I don't think it's an awful album, but it is definitely one of their weaker ones, like I will say that. I do appreciate them trying to sort of like expand their sound, like and like experiment, and like I must say, like on those tracks like where they are sort of like doing something like a little bit different on like say stuff like Go Let It Out and Who Feels Love and Gas Panic, those songs like really do like pay off and like are quite good. It is though the more generic like Oasis like sort of like rockers like Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is and like I Can See a Liar, which do tend to let this album down a little bit. Do you think as well like there was a couple of brilliant B-sides like what like got like kept off the album? Like this is something like which has played like pretty much like I'd say like every like Oasis album. Like there's always been there's always been like one or two like great B-sides like from the album, like which I think are better than most of the album tracks. Like in this case, like it would be Let's All Make Believe and a song called One Way Road, which again is really great and would have definitely improved the quality of the album. Now, yeah, later, like Noel like did say that he like regretted making this album, like he felt that he sort of like he like rushed into it like a little bit like too quickly, like he hadn't had like the time like to like sort of like compose himself, like assemble like a new band, like he kind of like just tried to do it like all himself. Like, but I do think that despite the few faults it has, it isn't a bad effort, and like certainly like I think like it is underrated a little bit. Like again, yeah, a lot of people like to say this is an awful album. It's bad. It's not bad. It's just not quite as good as some of their other work. So yeah, that's been my review of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.